Dumela Botswana, se ke sebaga sa Botswana, sebaga sa Botswana, sebaga sa Ramonyadiwa. Welcome to Issues on Red. Today we'll be talking about intersectionality and GBV. And like usual, I'm not alone. I'm with someone who are allowed to introduce themselves. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, I'm good.
I'm also good, thank you for asking.
Nah, you're good. I can see you're great.
That is great. So, bonala Botswana ko lapeng gore o mang o dira eng?
My name is Rebaone Ramonyadiwa. I am I'm a writer at heart. I'm a poet. I am someone who is very passionate about issues surrounding women, surrounding LGBT people, and putting a voice to what usually doesn't have a voice. Yeah.
That is beautiful. So today we are talking about the LGBTQ community and how they're affected by GBV. For someone who doesn't know what the LGBTQ is, can you just give a brief explanation as we lay the foundation?
LGBTQ, we are talking, it's an acronym. We're talking about lesbians, gays, bisexual, queer, intersex people. There is plus, which means we're including everybody else who is under the umbrella of anything we're talking about when we talk about sexuality, when we talk about sexual identity, including also allies. Yeah.
All right. By the look of things, how is it looking on the ground? How is the LGBTQ community affected by gender-based violence?
That is quite a broad question. Gender-based violence is a very prevalent thing, especially in our country. But whenever we're speaking about gender-based violence, we don't necessarily include LGBT people in the same conversation. It is only in those spaces, so it is only people who are in the LGBT community who you'll find speaking on these issues. Generally, you wouldn't find anyone else standing up to be saying, this is how these people are affected in these ways, 1, 2, 3. And if you look into it, you will find it is as prevalent, if not more, in the LGBT community as it is in other communities. The only difference is in reporting and speaking out about it. Yeah.
What do you think can be done to solve this matter? Every time we are having the conversation of GBV, the LGBTQ community is not included. Where can we start?
I mean, personally, I believe everything to do with LGBT community, especially in our country, has to start with educating people. Let's do these community outreach. I know that a lot of organizations nowadays are starting to get into these organizations like Banana Club. They are going out into the society, even like Habibo, talking to people, because the first thing you want to do is to show people that LGBT people are people. At the end of the day, we are humans as much as you are human. We face the same conflict as you face, and we also travel in the same community that you travel in. We live in the same community. We are people as much as everybody else is a person, you know. The problems that you face are the same problems that we face. And as soon as we can teach people, you know, just because someone is trans doesn't mean that any different from you, then we can get to a stage where we can treat people with a certain level of equality, with a certain level of understanding. You know, first comes the teaching, the understanding, and then we can speak about policy, we can speak about everything else, because there's no use at the end of the day to have a policy, well, not use, but there isn't really any much impact when you have policies, but there isn't any actualization of them on the ground.
I understand there are certain organizations that specifically deal with the LGBTQ community. Do you think it's helpful? Are general organizations or institutions really including the community? Does it help to have them have their own thing there, or is it just defying the whole fight that we are having?
You mean it becomes a separate thing now from
Yes.
No, because everyone needs to have a voice. So we need someone to say, this is our voice. It's the same for any institution. Every institution has a body. I'm not saying it's an institution,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you need a voice, then you have people who have a voice for you. When we talk about people with disabilities, there's somebody who has a voice for them. I get it. It's just to say we have a problem, we want it addressed, and there are certain people who've decided they'll be the forerunners in this thing, and they'll be the ones who will be bringing the issues to the people, who will be enlightening the people, who will be, because we always need leaders in everything.
Yeah,
I get it.
true.
So that the people who are leading us in saying, this is where we are at, and this is where we want to be, and this is the route we're going to take. We are going to be rushing and knocking on these doors to try and say, open up for everyone else.
What advice can you give to people in the community regarding the fight against GBV, or even people who are victims within the community? Are they doing enough when it comes to the fight against gender-based violence?
The fight against gender-based violence, not enough is being done. Not enough is being done because I believe if we're going to talk about gender-based violence in Botswana, we need to address issues of patriarchy, we need to address issues of misogyny and talk to these core issues, because this is what we are looking at first and foremost when we're talking about gender-based violence, because mostly gender-based violence in Botswana, you'll find it's intimate partner violence, where it is between people in a relationship. It is between people where, even in the LGBT community, because whatever heteronormative lifestyle that the hetero people have, it's always adopted into the homosexual community, and this is where we breed such things as gender-based violence, because we live in a community that has decided that certain people are above others, where we have men being the leaders and women being below. And even in a homosexual relationship, you will find people are still trying to adopt this thing, because it's very ingrained in who we are as a people, where if you are a bit feminine, you have to be lower than and subservient to the person who's more masculine, and be the provider, be the this, be the that. So when we divide people into these groups, even in homosexual relationships, we end up having things like gender-based violence, where partners are having disagreements, they're having problems, and it becomes hard to say to people, this is how we can monitor it, this is how we can help you, because in the LGBT community, you will find people don't know how to, people are in the closet, first of all. People are in the closet, and if there's violence in a relationship and the other partner is in a closet, then how do they come out and tell people, I'm facing this kind of a problem? Because first I'll have to be like, I am in this kind of a relationship. And you know the consequences that are going to come afterwards. The first thing that is going to happen is people are not going to be like, oh, let's help you with this violence that you're experiencing. First, we have to sit down and discuss, why are you in this kind of a relationship? What do you mean you are in this kind of a relationship?
All right, I hear you. Just briefly, very briefly, give any word of encouragement, any advice to either the LGBT community or Botswana in general.
That is
in
a
regards
heavy
to
thing.
GBV.
That's a heavy
Very
thing.
briefly.
I can say it is a very hard thing to be true to who you are. It is a very hard thing to get people to live with you an understanding of who you are. And not everyone is ready at the same time. And when you are ready, you are ready. You can come out, you can declare who you are, but you have to be ready for it. And I mean, no one condones violence. No one condones violence. Even the people who inflict this violence don't want it happening towards them. So it's hey, you've given me a hard task. So I can say for what it's worth that to the LGBT people mostly, let us try and bring ourselves away from adopting heteronormative ways of relating with each other. If we can relate with each other and knowing that it is a relationship built out of love and nothing else, then we stand a better chance of, getting over these. Yeah.
No, that is a beautiful advice. I don't know why you are doubting it, but that is that on that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, this is Issues on Red with myself, Ramonyadiwa. Until I see you next time, bye-bye. Welcome back. If you just tuned in, this is Issues on Red, and today we are continuing the conversation on intersectionality and gender-based violence. And I have fresh new guests who will be continuing this conversation with me. I am going to ask them to introduce themselves before we start the conversation. Dumelang.
Hello.
How are you feeling?
I'm excited.
We are good.
All right. I'm also super great and excited. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Mantswe, and I am the first and current youth advocate working with UNICEF in Botswana. I'm also a nominee for this year's Women's Awards under her abilities category.
Oh, that is great. We are with Big Studio today.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Kwape. I'm the project coordinator, Autism Botswana. I'm also the alumni for Community Solutions Program.
All right, welcome to the show once again. We're just going to start off with the very first question. How are marginalized communities affected by gender-based violence? Have you had any personal experience or know of anyone who's had such an experience when it comes to gender-based violence? I'll start with you, Catherine.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the question. I wouldn't say I've had a personal experience per se, but I would say considering my advocacy journey and the work that I do, I'm actually gonna say I've heard some young people who are differently abled presenting their cases as to how they are affected by GBV in the different societies that they come from, considering the fact that they are already part of the marginalized group of people in the society. GBV still affects them in numerous ways. They do not have a firm security in their homes. Most of the time they are alone, unsupervised, and unfully cared for, which exposes them and also makes them prone to different kinds of violence.
Have we had any experience, Ma?
Especially I work with individuals with autism of all different ages. Most of them are non-verbal, so they are mostly misunderstood in the community. We have heard stories of our learners who are bullied in schools, either by their peers or their teachers. Sometimes our kids are being bullied by the community at large because they are mostly misunderstood in the community, especially if they want something and they are unable to communicate it, or if they get into other people's homes, they can get like a physical abuse or verbal abuse from the community.
All right. I know, just being ambassadors of these marginalized communities, you are able to have the rightful information. So I'd like to know, are there available resources to help them with issues of gender-based violence or any form of violation at all? Are you happy with the resources that are being put forth?
I would like to say there are resources that the government is trying to put out there for their reach. But considering people who are differently abled, currently there's been this thing of child-friendly police stations to help these marginalized or vulnerable children to be able to express themselves or to report all kinds of abuse freely at the police stations. But we find out that these police stations have not yet spread widely to the rural areas where most vulnerable children are at, also where GBV cases are most prevailing at. So something is being done, but it's not really addressing the large number of people who are victims of GBV.
How do we feel about the resources?
Yeah, I think we have limited resources. Sometimes the resources are there, but people out there, they don't know about these resources, so we still need more advocacy on those issues to teach Botswana about GBV, to teach people who are differently abled about GBV issues, where to get access if you are exposed to any kind of abuse out there.
All right, now I'd like us to get to the misconceptions. What would we want Botswana to know regarding marginalized communities and gender-based violence or any form of violation at all? What would we like to put out there to Botswana and break the misconception?
I think Botswana most definitely need to know that just because somebody might be differently made up, like physically from you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should treat them differently. It's just their uniqueness. Also, they should understand that the members of the marginalized groups, although they are the most prone to GBV, they need to be treated just like anybody else. When they go for these counseling sessions, already people just give them the stare of you are differently abled. So some of them end up just enduring this GBV and staying at home due to fear of people's eyes. They're gonna stare at me. Imagine I'm using a wheelchair and then I have to go and report that I'm raped. How will they look at me? That officer, will they give me the same equal treatment that they would have given somebody like yourself if you went to report the same issue? So I think that they should just treat, first of all, start to like change their mindset towards these members of the marginalized groups, and also treat them just like how they would like to be treated, just like everybody else, because they are just like everybody else. They're just unique, that's it.
That is indeed true. Any word you'd like to put out there to
Yeah, I would like to say every life matters. It doesn't matter what your abilities are. So we shouldn't mistreat people because they are disabled. It is wrong to do that. So generally, as Botswana, we should have a change of a mindset and be a community that is accepting of everyone regardless of their ability, and learn to treat people with kindness everywhere we go. That's all I can say for now.
All right. Ke tsaya ke re o ikutlwetse Motswana ko gae. Speak for yourself, speak up, because by speaking you are encouraging others to do the same and report. And at the end of the day, we are fighting for a peaceful nation that is safe for everyone. This is Issues on Red. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.
All right. Do you think it affects different vulnerable groups, or just everybody is prone to experiencing gender-based violence?
It affects everybody. No matter how the gender you are, being old, young, kids, wife, husband, everybody.
All right.
So, do you think that gender-based violence particularly affects people in a certain vulnerable or everybody? Well, from what I've seen, it does affect everybody, but in context, it mostly affects the one who's like weaker. Like, let's say it's men, obviously it's going to be the woman, because she is then perceived to be weaker, she can't defend themselves and all that, and then, men are always, superior. So that's normally what happens. Even in vulnerable, it's like people with disability, they'll be violated against because they'll be looked at as, they can't do anything. Like somebody, they can't walk, so you can just infringe on their rights and everything because, they're like, yeah, that's the right thing. That's really much insightful from your information.
This is Issues on Red. My name is VVA, and we're about to get into a story about GBV experiences that people are feeling outside of the space. Here's one. Have you ever felt that your voice wasn't heard because of your circumstances? My name is Rebaone, and this is my story. I've been living with a physical disability since birth, which requires me to use a wheelchair. Despite the challenges, I've always strived to have a full independent life. In my mid-20s, I met Buemo, a charming and attentive man who seemed to understand and appreciate me. At first, Buemo was supportive and caring. He helped me with my daily tasks, made me feel loved. But gradually, his behavior changed, especially after we started living together. He began to use my disability against me, making me feel helpless and dependent on him. He would say things like, "Who else would want you? You can't manage without me." And mind you, this is a person who's been managing before she has met this man. The emotional abuse soon escalated to physical violence. Boemo would shove me, leave me in places where I couldn't easily access help, and even withheld my mobility aids to control me. He made me feel trapped, both physically and emotionally. I let it go on for so long, as I believed no one was ever going to want someone like me. One evening, after a particularly violent outburst, I knew I couldn't endure it any longer. I reached out to a friend, Pearl, who had always been supportive. Through tears, I told her everything. Pearl didn't hesitate to pick me up. With her help, I began to rebuild my life and go back to being independent. Leaving Boemo was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most empowering. I started advocating for others in similar situations, sharing my story to raise awareness about the unique challenges faced by women with disabilities who experienced gender-based violence. Today, I am stronger and more resilient. I want others to know that no matter your circumstance, you have the right to be safe and respected. Speak out, seek help, and remember that your voice matters.